Time management, the bank of time. If you had a bank that credited your account each morning with $86,400 but carried over no balances from day to day, allowed you to keep no cash in your account, and every night canceled whatever amount you had failed to use during that day, what would you do? Draw out every cent, every day, of course. You do have such a bank. The name of it is time. Every morning it credits you with 86,400 seconds. Every night it writes off as losses all of those you fail to use or invest for good purposes. It carries over no balances. It allows no overdrafts. Each night it closes off the record of the passing day. Each morning it opens a new account with you. If you fail to use each day's deposit, the loss is yours. There is no going back. There is no drawing against tomorrow. You must live in the present on today's deposit. I really like this analogy because it effectively compares time to something that we all value to varying extents, but nevertheless we all value, and that is money. Can you imagine ripping up a $20 bill and throwing it in the trash can? Or worse, how about a $50 bill or a $100 bill? We just can't do that, or it would be extremely difficult and uncomfortable to do that. Wasting our time, which can be said to be just as valuable as money, should be just as uncomfortable as throwing a $20 bill in the trash can. Time management, or rather the lack thereof, has been cited as the #1 source of stress among college students. Just an FYI, a close second was lack of money. It's been said that time is gone forever once spent and is the ultimate equal opportunity employer. Have you ever felt that there just aren't enough hours in a day to get everything done that you need to accomplish? Time management, which is the ability to prioritize, schedule, and execute personal responsibilities, may be a misnomer. The challenge is not to manage time, but to manage ourselves. Have we become slaves to rather than masters of time? In other words, do you feel that sometimes you're running around putting out fires or having to run from one thing to the next? We're going to talk about some prioritization techniques first and then some scheduling techniques for the purpose of helping you become masters of time rather than slaves to time. ABC rank order. Prioritizing techniques are techniques that do just that. Help you prioritize or rank tasks in order of their importance. The ABC rank order method involves assigning the letters A, B, or C to various responsibilities. A for the highest priority, B for the second highest activities, and C for the low priority tasks. First, make your list of everything you need to do today or this week, and then assign a letter to each item. Then it's recommended that you rewrite the list with all the A's listed first, then the B's, then the C's, or organize them into columns. Or you can write this month, this week, and today instead of ABC. The idea is that you work only on the items listed in the urgent or A list before moving to your B list. Move to the C list only when you complete all the B items, etc. This technique is good to use if you have a lot of different things that you need to work on, or if you have a tendency to work on things that you really shouldn't be working on until you complete other more urgent tasks. The Pareto Principle states that 20% of the tasks we do give 80% of the rewards or satisfaction. Also referred to as the 80-20 rule, this principle suggests that individuals should focus on only 1 or 2 significant tasks that are worth the time invested in them. According to this principle, out of every 10 responsibilities listed, only 2 will produce recognizable gains or satisfaction. So similar to the ABC rank order method, this technique recommends that people put the majority of their time and effort for the day into only 1 or 2 items that are most urgent. The Premack Principle, also known as the eat your peas before dessert method, the Premack Principle involves simply making a conscious effort to work on those things that you really don't want to, but you need to do them before working on something else that you want to work on that's not as important. So eat your peas before dessert means working on something that you don't necessarily want to work on before working on something that you do want to work on. Reverse calendar. The reverse calendar method pertains to the saying, you can eat an elephant if you do it one bite at a time. The reverse calendar method requires that you break down a major project or goal into mini goals and assign due dates to those mini goals. So you prioritize the tasks that need to be done in the order in which they need to be accomplished. Calculate how much time you'll need to complete each mini task before the final due date. Write the due dates in your day planner or on your calendar just as if they were real due dates. This prevents last-minute crunching, which prevents you from putting your body through the stress response. Before we begin our time management seminar, did everyone get one of these 36-hour watches? There's not one of us who has 36 hours in our day. We all have 24 hours, but how we schedule and manage those hours is up to us. So let's talk about a couple of scheduling techniques. Scheduling techniques involve matching a specific task or responsibility with the designated time period in which to accomplish it. Boxing. The concept of boxing involves breaking down your daily waking hours into 3 to 5 hour boxes of time, such as morning, afternoon, and evening. In each box, you designate a specific responsibility. Boxing is primarily geared toward big projects that require large blocks of time. Time mapping is similar to boxing, but with this strategy, the day is broken down into very small blocks of time, usually about a quarter to half-hour segments. Appointments or specific tasks, such as making a phone call, are designated for specific times. Clustering is a scheduling technique for completing errands outside the home. In other words, it's for running errands. Make a list of errands you need to run, then cluster or map them out by location. In a nutshell, time management can be seen as consisting of 3 components. The big picture, which could be your schedule for the quarter. What days and times do you work? What days and times do you go to classes, etc. It's an overview of your schedule for the quarter. Breaking it down refers to taking it 1 week at a time. There may be additional one-time things that you need to do in a particular week that is not part of the overview or the big picture. The nitty-gritty refers to the daily to-do lists and includes very specific tasks that you need to do for that day, and includes all the nitty-gritty stuff like stopping by the ATM or doing a load of laundry, etc. Cognitive restructuring. The following are technically cognitive restructuring or talk therapy, but they all pertain to time management. Here are a couple of suggestions. Remind yourself that life is always unfinished, and that's okay. You'll never finish. It will always be unfinished, but that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. Stop trying to think of more than one thing at a time. Just focus on one thing at a time. Learn to recognize when you're doing it, when you're trying to think of tons of things at once, and develop the discipline to catch yourself and focus your attention on one thing at a time. Tell yourself at least once a day that no enterprise ever failed because it was executed too slowly, too well. Remind yourself that if you fail to protect your allotment of time, no one else will. It's up to you to strive to stay on schedule. Additional recommendations. Here are some additional tips for you. Learn to be patient. If you see someone doing a job slower than you can do it, don't interfere unless you're positive he or she can't do the job at all. Time management isn't necessarily about doing as much as you can, as fast as you can. Relax. Purposely go to places where you know there will be a period of waiting. Purposely get in the longest line. Purposely take the freeway instead of back roads during rush hour traffic. Purposely put yourself in situations that require you to be patient and relax. Don't speed up your car to get through a yellow light. Make a conscious effort to go the speed limit. Schedule personal time each day, even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes. Find a period each day during which you seek total body relaxation. Remember, this is one of the characteristics that was found among those who handle stress effectively. They took some time for themselves every day. Schedule interruptions. Stuff always happens. Don't book yourself so as not to allow any cushion time for those inevitable interruptions. Watch less TV. It's amazing how much time is sucked away by watching TV. Can you imagine how much more productive you'd be if you added up all the time each week that you watch TV and spent that time doing something else? Delegate when possible or appropriate. Obviously, delegating your assignments and schoolwork to someone else is inappropriate, but are there other things that you can delegate to someone else? Establish a time and place to study. Studies have shown that students have more productive study sessions when they have a particular time and place that they always study. Adopt a do-it-now attitude. Don't set things aside to do later when it would take you 2 seconds to do it right now. Make that phone call right now as you're thinking about it. If you have a ton of mail or email to go through, don't set aside a bunch of mail or email messages that you have to go back to later. Deal with it now. Just as we need to value our time, perhaps as much as we value money, we also need to be careful not to go overboard when trying to accomplish too much in what little time we may have. I'm going to kill myself, writes Woody Allen in a parody on the speed of life. I should go to Paris and jump off the Eiffel Tower. I'll be dead. You know, in fact, if I get the Concorde, I could be dead 3 hours earlier, which would be perfect. Or wait a minute, with the time change, I can be alive for 6 hours in New York, but dead 3 hours in Paris. I could get things done, and I could also be dead. Clock versus compass. All of the prioritization and scheduling techniques in these recommendations are designed to help us get more accomplished. Sometimes we work so hard to climb the ladder of success, only to realize that our ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. In other words, it's important important to keep our priorities in the right order. I'm sure that no one has ever complained on their deathbed that they wish they had spent more time at the office or that they wish they had spent more time at work. So although it's important to manage your time so you can get things done in the most efficient manner as possible, it's also important to keep your priorities straight. It may be more important to live in congruence with your values rather than to focus solely on how to get more things done in a faster amount of time. The clock refers to commitments, appointments, schedules, goals, and activities. It's what we do with and how we manage our time. The prioritization and scheduling techniques that we talked about pertain to the clock. Be careful not to focus solely on the clock at the expense of the compass. The compass refers to our vision, values, principles, mission, conscience, and direction. It's what we feel is important and how we lead our lives. Unfortunately, there's often a gap between the clock and the compass, between what's deeply important to us and the way we spend our time. Usually it takes some sort of wake-up call or dramatic event to bring us to an awareness of this gap. What is the one activity you know if you did superbly well and consistently would have significant positive results in your personal life? What is the one activity you know if you did superbly well and consistently would have significant positive results in your work or school life? If you know these things would make such a significant difference, why are you not doing them now? Take a look at the reasons. What can you do to combat those reasons? Mayonnaise jar. Here's an illustration of the importance of living by the compass rather than the clock. The mayonnaise jar and 2 cups of coffee. A professor stood before his philosophy class and had some items in front of him. When the class began, he wordlessly picked up a very large and empty mayonnaise jar and proceeded to fill it with golf balls. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was. The professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly. The pebbles rolled into the open areas between the golf balls. He then asked the students again if the jar was full. They agreed it was. The professor next picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. Of course, the sand filled up everything else. He asked once more if the jar was full. The students responded with a unanimous yes. The professor then produced 2 cups of coffee from under the table and poured the entire contents into the jar, effectively filling the empty space between the sand. The students laughed. "Now," said the professor as the laughter subsided, "I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. The golf balls are the important things: God, your family, your children, your health, your friends, and your favorite passions. And if everything else was lost and only they remained, your life would still be full. The pebbles are the other things that matter: your job, your house, and your car. The sand is everything else, the small stuff. If you put the sand into the jar first," he continued, "there's no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same goes for life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are important to you. Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. Play with your children. Take time to get medical checkups. Take your spouse out to dinner. Play another 18. There will always be time to clean the house and fix the disposal. Take care of the golf balls first, the things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just sand." One of the students raised her hand and inquired what the coffee represented. The professor smiled. "I'm glad you asked. It just goes to show you that no matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a couple cups of coffee with a friend. So in looking at how we manage our time better and more efficiently, let's not forget to include the golf balls in our mayonnaise jar, and remember that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing." There are 2 supplemental videos for this lecture. One simple time management rule, which is about 3.5 minutes long and is very simple but interesting what he has to say, and how to manage your time better, just over 4 minutes, and is another well-cast video. Key points. Prioritization techniques include the ABC rank order method, the Pareto Principle, the Premack Principle, and the reverse calendar method. Scheduling techniques include boxing, time mapping, and clustering. Components of time management are the big picture, breaking it down, and the nitty-gritty. Keep in mind some cognitive restructuring recommendations that pertain to time management. Several additional recommendations were provided, such as learn to be patient and schedule personal time each day. The analogy of the clock and the compass illustrates the importance of making sure your values are in the right priority. And that's it for this lecture.